by insurgency for over 20 years, which has led to economic and social constraints. Now, this has led to loss of lives, loss of production, loss of investments, as well as displacement, among so many other issues. Some people have argued that agriculture remains the most direct bullet intervention in ensuring development. Hence, the first Northern Uganda Agriculture Show that is planned to be or to take place in Gulu. A very good morning and welcome to Good Morning Uganda Extra. My name is Sharon Chomdisha. I hope you're having a lovely day. It's a Monday, I know. Maybe you have had issues waking up, but I mean, new day, new blessings. Just get up and do what you're supposed to do. Welcome once again to Good Morning Uganda Extra. In studio with me is Abasi Chigozi, who is a project coordinator from NARO, and he's here to tell us more about what NARO is doing, why Northern Uganda, why agriculture seems like it's the only solution to help in development, even when we know that most of the soils there are dry. A very good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Now tell us a little about NARO.
Yes, thank you very much, moderator. NARO is one of the government agencies under the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, and it's charged with the mandate of conducting agricultural research in different fields of agriculture. The organization is structured into 17 public agricultural research institutes that conduct research in different fields of agriculture, ranging from forestry, livestock resources, crop resources, coffee research, and all that. So the 16 institutes are categorized into two. The first category is the Public Agriculture Research Institute, or the National Agriculture Research Institutes, with a national mandate in terms of conducting research, while the other second category of 8 public agricultural research institutes is what we call the Zonal Agricultural Research and Development Institutes, which are charged with conducting research at zonal level, but most importantly also conducting development and technology transfer to the communities in the different zones where they are located.
Okay, interesting. Now with NARO, why Northern Uganda?
So among the 16 public agricultural research institutes, 4 of these institutes are concentrated in Northern Uganda. I have just mentioned that we have about seven institutes with a national mandate working on different commodities, and we have zonal institutes in the different agroecological zones in Uganda, depending on the the agricultural activity that takes place in that particular zone. That's what we work on in those different zonal agricultural research and development institutes. So when it comes to Northern Uganda, it is home to 4 public agricultural research institutes under the National Agricultural Research Organization, 3 zonal institutes, and 1 institute of national mandate. That one institute is the National Semi-Arid Resources Research Institutes, located in Serere, and it is mainly semi-arid resources because, as you may know, Northern Uganda is largely a drought-prone area.
Yes.
Because it includes Karamoja and the Mid-North. So that national institute has a national mandate to take on research on semi-arid resources for both crops and livestock. Now at zonal level, where you want the technologies to trickle down into the communities, NARO structured Northern Uganda into 3 subzones. The first zone is the West Nile region, where we have the Abi Zonal Agricultural Research Institute located in Arua. And for the Mid-North, that is the Lango and Acholi sub-region, we have the Ngeta Zonal Agricultural Research and Development Institute located in Lira district. And for the eastern part of the country, the northeastern part, which is largely Karamoja, mainly concentrating on cattle and semi-arid resources for livestock resources, we have the Nabuin Zonal Agricultural Research and Development Organization.
Does this mean that you have all the zonal institutes for them to cater for the different kinds of soils or even agricultural ways of life, I guess, in these different parts of northern Uganda?
Yes. So the 3 zonal institutes, agriculture is broad, and that is why we have a broad mandate when it comes to agricultural research. I just mentioned that it ranges from forestry resources through crop resources, food production, livestock resources, and all that comes with it, including cross-cutting elements such as environment, gender, and climate change. So the Institute, the Semi-Arid Resources Institute, has a national mandate to cater for any technologies after conducting baseline studies within the region to inform us on the challenges that are facing the population in that region, especially when it comes to agriculture. So what happens after technologies have been developed? Of course, together with the other national agricultural research institutes that are not necessarily located in the zone, for example, National Livestock Resources Research Institute and the National Crop Resources Research Institute. So they gather these technologies and tailor them to the zone. Now the 3 zonal agricultural research and development institutes, the one in West Nile, Mid North, and Karamoja, are the ones which package the technologies and then ensure that they are finally taken down to the different target communities that require to use those technologies.
Okay. And how have people responded to the technologies that you guys have taken to these areas to trickle down into society for them to have help when it comes to agriculture?
Yes, thank you very much. Before we come down to the response by the communities, I will talk about it in a minute. We need to have some kind of background because it actually gives the extent of demand for those technologies before we actually go into the actual uptake. Northern Uganda was largely the Uganda's food basket, but for a long time has, been faced with a number of challenges.
It was?
Yes, yes, it
food?
was. Lango sub-region was at one point one of the, the region which produced the highest quantities of food commodities,
Which
especially
food?
the cereals, maize, and the the grain commodities.
Okay.
Exactly. So because of the insurgency, there was a lot of distortion in the people's livelihoods. But before we come to that, the region is home to about 8 million people and about 1.8 million households, 1.2 million households of whom actually derive their livelihoods from agriculture. That's 84%. Now that's the extent to which technologies, especially in agriculture, are needed in that region, because the idea is start with what the communities already know. What they already know is agriculture. I'm sure it would be far-fetched to put a car assembly line, for example, there, which is good, but I mean it is not part of them if you want to drive them out of poverty. It is something that you do at a certain level of development for the region. So we are saying that 84% of people in the region actually derive their livelihoods from agriculture. So that's the extent to which they actually need technologies that improve agricultural production in the region. And it is not surprising that Naro sought it wise to actually have 4 dedicated institutes in the region to ensure that agricultural development in the region is taken up. Secondly, before I come to the actual demand and rate of adoption, it is also important to know the technologies that are available for the people of the mid-northern region. And in the technologies, I'll also be mentioning about the actual interventions that we are taking up in the region. I mentioned earlier that we are mainly concentrating into food production based at our Semi-Arid Resources Research Institute. And what we do, we conduct baseline studies that inform our intervention. Now from that, we choose flagship commodities for which to conduct research and to promote on a large scale. Agricultural production or food production has an array of commodities that can be produced. So we conduct baseline studies to inform which commodities we can take on with the communities, and then we carry out a needs analysis, get to know which challenges are facing that commodity in terms of production. Is it drought tolerance? Is it in terms of yield? And then the research informs us of our interventions, and then after coming up with solutions is when we interface with the communities. Among the key challenges, Northern Uganda is known mainly to be a grain producing area, mainly producing maize, soybean, groundnuts, and beans in the region, mainly grain commodities. And then in terms of food that the communities eat, mainly in terms of additional cereals such as wheat, simsim, barley, and of recent, one of the most important commercial commodity is the cashew nut, which we are pursuing with the Ngeta Zonal Agricultural Research and Development Institute. To go back to your question, adoption has been largely embraced in terms of these commodities. The communities were largely traditional, producing commodities with lots of challenges that we worked on. The challenges can be broadly categorized in terms of the potential of those crops to produce enough for both consumption in the households and sale after the consumption needs have been met. The other key challenge has been mainly in form of pest and disease prevalence. So yield, pest and disease prevalence, and the third and equally important is their tolerance to climate change. Climate change has become a big thing these days, and it is known to affect productivity and yield of the whole array of agricultural production system. So our research mainly concentrates on those, mainly yield, plus its accompanying nutritional composition of the food. You do not want yield that produces, non-nutritious foods. And then a response to climate change, and then pests and diseases. So as NARO, that's how we come in, and we have a number of products that have addressed this, key of which has been the groundnut research at Semi-Arid Resources Research Institute, which has mainly increased the yield potential of the groundnut commodity, which is majorly grown in the area. And based at our National Crops Resources Research Institute, two of the most important commodities for the northern region has been maize, for which we have produced the famous Wema maize that is adaptable to northern Uganda. What did we have before that? We had the traditional, maize varieties and uncharacterized. So our research protocol helps us to characterize and select, mixed variety of sorts without, definite characteristics, and it is part of which that we experience, low yields or, less productivity of these characteristics. So we are saying that a variety should be uniform with known standards and yields. It shouldn't be mixed. So it was a previous challenge within our farming communities. They used to grow mixed varieties, high yielding mixed with low yielding. So, even the continuity becomes a very big challenge. The other commodity that is of importance to the northern region is the bean. The National Crop Resources Research Institute, through its legumes program, has done a good job to improve the both yield and nutritional composition of the bean varieties that can actually grow in the region. And of recent, we have the iron and zinc rich fortified bean variety, narrow bean varieties that we are currently promoting in the region. Didn't we have beans that already had the iron and zinc? We did, and actually the communities still like the traditional beans a lot, but we are saying that these are fortified beans with enhanced potential to produce this, to actually meet the nutritional requirements of humans when eaten in lesser quantities than the traditional bean varieties. What's the enhancement that goes on for us to have beans that are better than the traditional ones from the research centers? The enhancement is informed from a health perspective. If I may give you some bit of background, still northern Uganda, we do not want to dwell very much on the negative statistics, but it is what informs our intervention. Still northern Uganda is one of the regions, coincidental I mentioned it was formerly food basket, but the war and the organization of farming system disrupted the setup. So it led to a high increase in stunting levels. Stunting levels comes from poor utilization of food by the body.
Stunting for humans?
Stunting for humans.
Okay.
Because in agriculture we begin with satisfying yourself before you actually sell. I mean, you will not sell and then, you know, you remain stunted. You first consume and have enough, and then, you know, you have an excess for sale. So the northern region has the highest levels of stunting, and Lango sub-region, the last time I checked, it was at 20%, while the Acholi sub-region was at 30%. Now below, above 20% is actually a poor statistic according to World Health Organization, but 20 to 30% is serious, while above 40% of the population being stunted is critical. So with 20 to 30%, that is a range from, you know, very serious to critical for a population to have this stuntedness. Now that is what informs us on what are the good nutrients within a food that we should enhance to alleviate that stuntedness. Not all minerals or, you know, food value elements do that. So we pick up on food value elements that work to exactly alleviate that. Most importantly, the minerals that we enhance during our research program, what we call a breeding program for foods, so that, you know, these minerals are at a certain level within those foods, but we enhance them to meet the nutritional requirements of the population. So what we call fortification or enhancement is increasing the quantity of these minerals in these foods such that they can be used to meet the nutritional requirements of the population.
There's been an argument where enhancement for foods, for animals, for that, you know, this is instead creating more harm because whatever it is, whether it's fertilizers for the plants or anything that is manufactured or made in laboratories and added into these plants, that is causing more disease, more cancer in humans. How true is that?
Not necessarily true. It is actually not true, and I think as National Agricultural Research Organization, we need to do more in terms of sensitizing the communities on these perceptions on foods. That is the same, you know, the same challenge that the health professionals are facing with the vaccines and drugs. Vaccine
is a different case, mostly the COVID-19 vaccine, but
So it is not necessarily true, and at an opportune moment we shall have time, you know, to sensitize the communities more that these enhanced foods are actually not dangerous to humans. But I will agree with you that if we produce them, then we need to sensitize the communities on how to utilize them. Whether if they are taken in large quantities, they can be disastrous to the communities. We also educate to them the added research that we do during the breeding program, because we go from the laboratory to the fields, even to the consumption by the humans, and they test them. Do they test well and all that? And we also study the adverse effects through our agricultural health interface. So they are not actually dangerous food. They are enhanced foods to provide the nutrients, readily available nutrients, but with less quantities of the commodities chosen, and they are not dangerous.
When you talk about enhancement, for example, and we still have traditional, for example, let's go for the beans. We still have traditional beans in Northern Uganda being produced, but then we have a better version that has more zinc, like you said, and iron.
Yes.
Is the production is the growing what is it called? For example, does it take is it growing faster than what the traditional one is doing? Is it more resistant to pests and diseases? Do you get more yield from the ones that the research centers have sort of manufactured or come up with or enhanced for better production?
The first farmer is, the first researcher, agricultural researcher is actually the farmer themselves. And they actually do a very good job, though they do it, should I say informally or traditionally, selecting these crops that actually grow better, have good eating qualities, have good nutrients, they actually select for them. So what we do from a scientific point is to accelerate the process using science and technology. And we exactly do that. You've actually summarized what our breeding program entails. It entails going into the communities, picking on the different varieties that they have.
Seeds, yes.
Then understanding what are the challenges associated with those varieties. And it can be an array of challenges or limited challenges depending on where you are. For example, if you're not in a drought-prone area, then probably you will not research or have a breeding program that customizes, different varieties to drought tolerance. So it depends on the challenges. And partly I will agree with you that in most cases, you find that this mix of challenges are in one particular area. I've just mentioned that actually we have these challenges all over the place in Northern Uganda. It's drought prone, having one season, one long rainy season and one long drought season. So you want crops that are adapted to that. Pests and disease is still a challenge. And because the season is short rainy seasons, you want quick maturing varieties. So you find in some instances you actually need solutions that put together all these challenges in a basket to produce a variety that can try to balance all the different challenges that the communities take on. But yes, that's exactly what we work on to improve the yield, make sure that we shorten the cycles of these plants so that they are grown within seasons. If you're not going to promote irrigation, for example, and you work on the common pests and diseases. Pests in Western Uganda are different from those in Eastern Uganda because of the different agroecological setup. So you actually conduct research to work or to alleviate, to remove those pests and diseases that attack those crops in that particular agroecological zone. That's exactly what our mandate as NARO entails.
Very interesting work. What are some of the other perceptions that maybe you've met in communities? You've had people or concerns that actually locals have had, even when you're introducing them to better seedlings or better ways of farming or better interventions?
I think one of the major challenges that we are working on in Northern Uganda is access to seed.
Okay.
When you conduct unlike the traditional varieties, how do I put it? Well, unlike the traditional varieties that can be recycled from planting season to planting season, from one planting season to another, most of the improved varieties, because of the scientific rigor or research that we take them through, they cannot be recycled. So you need to be replacing the seed every season for it to maintain its vigor. You do not recycle.
So does that mean that actually farmers have to buy every single season?
So not only cost is a challenge, but even access to that seed.
Okay.
So we need to promote more the seed companies to operate in that area so that they avail the seed. And when they avail the seed and go into production more, probably the cost of actually selling the seed, because you have more customers, will reduce.
Does that mean that you actually then have more people who are preferably going for the traditional seeds than the ones, because I can recycle, while the other one I have to always buy for every single season?
Not necessarily, because the minds towards commercialization is actually changing, the minds of the population.
Okay.
And the traditional ones can accommodate the requirement for food, but not for commercialization of agriculture. So the ones that you purchase, all the improved varieties, can actually accommodate commercialization of agriculture, yet they have been enhanced enough to also cater for the food component. So actually, people have started, taking them up because, the mind has become more commercial than remaining traditional on only food production. So yes, I will agree that access to seed and the cost of the seed is still a challenge, but when you factor in the fact that you're actually going to make money out of it, it's actually not for consumption only. Yes, people have started adopting, and they are, first adopting these varieties that are improved.
Why is it hard to access the seeds?
It is because the
seed that can give you the best for meals, for commercial purposes?
It is because I would attribute it to the fact that whereas the research has been done, the research extension interface has not, been so robust to promote this seed. And the seed companies usually sell to the large-scale commercial farmers. In Northern Uganda, we are largely talking about, within the agricultural farming population, we are talking about more than 90% smallholder farmers. So because you sell small quantities, the seed companies do not find it viable to actually go into small-scale production. They actually sell to large-scale production farmers. But we've worked around that, and we've developed another model for availing seed to small-scale farmers, and this is what we call the local seed businesses. So if the large companies are mainly concentrated in the central region or in any other region but selling to the large-scale farmers who are actually into largely business for most of the time, we are saying that we can have some farmers who actually work like seed companies, and we call them the local seed companies. And at our Zonal Research Institute, we house an umbrella body for Northern Uganda local seed businesses, bringing together home to over 60 farmer groups that are undertaking local seed production so that they can distribute this seed to their fellow farmers at a cheaper cost. And that is how we are working around to ensure that actually this seed is accessed by these farmers. So these local seed businesses are actually farmer-led seed companies of sorts, collecting the seed requirements of the farmers in, for example, an area, say a sub-county or village, and then as a farmer group producing the seed that is required but in small quantities for each of the farmers, and then aggregating it and selling it to the farming communities within that particular area.
Okay.
So work around issue of seed access in that aspect.
Thank you, Abbas. That's Abbas Chigozi, the project coordinator, NARO, and informing us about the first Northern Ugandan Agriculture Show, which is supposed to track and showcase efforts made in the region as well as disseminate transformative technologies for all the farmers in there. Now, did you know that actually Northern Uganda was once a food basket? And NARO and so many other organizations are working towards making sure that this continues to be the case, or actually still can be the case. We'll take a short commercial break and we'll be back.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
The Kabaka Birthday Run 2022 is back on Sunday, 3rd July 2022 at Lubiri Mengo. This year, the run will be physical and will be flagged off by Sabasaja Kabaka at 7 a.m. Come out in large numbers once again to Lubiri Mengo. Run for a cause to fight and end HIV by 2030. Buy your ticket today at 15,000 Uganda shillings from Airtel shops at Tobani Center, New Taxi Park, ShopRite Building, Benchwanka Street, Majestic Brands Office at Bulange Mengo. You can also buy your ticket using Airtel Money. Dial *185*5#. Select Payments, select Kabaka Run, and follow the prompts to complete the payment. Kabaka Birthday Run 2022 is brought to you by UNAID, CBS, BBS, and Airtel, the smartphone network.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello?
Hello?
This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey! You don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number, and you send it to her chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS? We talk about it.
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera. Refrain from unnecessary engagement with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Packages, great entertainment, sports, local content, telenovela, the movies. There is something for everybody. Go TV, this is where great stories live.
Get the best entertainment for any budget. With GoTV, you will have great entertainment for as little as 13,000 Ugandan shillings per month. GoTV, great stories, Zidiwano. GoTV Uganda, love it.
Success.
Live UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
You're still watching Good Morning Uganda Extra with me, Sharon Chomdisha, and Abbas Chiguzi, Project Coordinator Naro. And yes, we're still going with the conversation on the first Northern Uganda Agriculture Show that is seeking to track and showcase efforts made in the region, as well as disseminating transformative technologies to improve and make sure that Northern Uganda takes back its glory as the food basket in Uganda for grains, you said? Yes. And so much more. Now, among the flagship interventions of a project in Northern Uganda to work on agriculture challenges that they faced, the Office of the Prime Minister introduced DINU in Northern Uganda. Can you please tell us the objectives of this project and why it was even introduced in the first place?
Oh, thank you very much. The Development Initiative for Northern Uganda is a European Union funded project, co-funded with the government of Uganda, but hosted in the Office of the Prime Minister. And because of the challenges we've talked about that the northern region, faced, and because of its uniqueness in terms of the challenges facing it, the Office of the Prime Minister thought it wise to come up with a project called Development Initiative for Northern Uganda, mainly working on three result areas or major interventions in the region. The first intervention is mainly agriculture. I just mentioned that 84% of the population in the region derive their livelihoods from agriculture. So it is needless to mention why a project that is intervening in such an area or a region would leave out or would emphasize on agriculture. The other intervention that the project is undertaking is infrastructure establishment, mainly roads and facilities such as logistics hub that can help to support agriculture production in the region. So agriculture, related infrastructure in the region. And three, the project is working on governance. If you have all these interventions going on, then you must have the right governance structures in place for you to better execute and guide on the utilization of this infrastructure if you want to, to drive people out of poverty and to help them, operationalize or utilize these structures. So the National Agriculture Research Organization is grateful to the Office of the Prime Minister because it was selected to lead one of the consortiums that is executing under Result Area 1 in terms of agricultural intervention. And from the background I just informed you about what NARO does, it has these technologies readily available that have been derived from its different research intervention. So the Office of the Prime Minister thought it wise to subcontract us under the Development Initiative for Northern Uganda to take these technologies to the community so that they are utilized, and we promote these technologies that for both food and commercialization of agriculture in the region. So NARO came up with a project on diversification of food systems in order to chase poverty and hunger out of the communities. That is our motto. We want to chase poverty and hunger. Not a very easy job to undertake, but we are trying through that initiative. But largely we are centered on taking the narrow-generated technologies to the communities.
What are some of those technologies that you're talking about?
Our interventions are in three areas. One is on the actual agricultural commodities, the seed. Two is on market access. When we want to commercialize agriculture, so if a community is used to being 90% subsistence, eating for their own, in their homesteads, then you want to help them in terms of market access if you want to commercialize agriculture. Then three, and equally important but surprising, is we are doing some bit of public health because of the negative statistics when it comes to public health that I just talked about. So you do not want to improve livelihoods in a sick community. I mean, what will that mean? I mean, it doesn't, augur well, I mean, if the communities are not doing well in terms of public health. And there are some public health indices that we are working on. Most important, which probably would be of interest to you, is the high prevalence of teenage pregnancies in the region.
Why do you think it's high? Why do you think it's of interest?
It is. We think it mainly stems from the destruction of social structures due to the insurgents concentrating women and girls and youth in camps. For some reason, I don't know, but for some reason they've not yet resurrected from that. They need to undergo through this kind of counseling system so that gets out of their minds. And then, because of the high poverty incidences coupled with the previous insurgency, you find that, undertaking social requirements such as education is very difficult in the region. It's only accessed through some seed schools and UPE schools, but largely it is, the communities are not in school, so especially the youth. And we are seeing, during our project implementation, we are, meeting these youth on ground as we are implementing the project activities.
Does that affect your work in any way, and how?
It does, but for us it poses an opportunity because the youth are the largest proportion of the different social structures, more than the elderly and women. So we want to promote commercialization through using them as the labor force. So if youth have access to land and they can actually access it, it's our major target because they form the largest proportion of the social structure in the region. And in the process of improving their livelihoods and commercialization, we hope and we believe that finally they'll either go back to school or take one of their siblings back to school. This is the idea that we are promoting. But back to public health, and most importantly, alongside the agricultural development that we are going to elaborate a little bit in detail, we are promoting what we are calling adolescent-friendly services centers within the public health system to deal with, these issues of public health related to the teenage group. Why? It is because it is our major target in the agricultural component. We want them to have a settled mind and counseled to take up food production and business activities. Back to the major technologies, the all success stories that we are undertaking. We are promoting what we are calling a village supermarket system of agricultural production. We are riding on the Ministry of Trade's initiative of reviving cooperatives. So we are bringing farmer groups together, and we are constructing for them what we are calling bulking centers or demonstration centers where they can bulk their produce after production. For you to access markets, it's very difficult to access markets single-handedly because most of them are small-scale farmers. I just mentioned that. So they produce food in small quantities, 200 kilograms, 100 kilograms. So if you want to sell to a large-scale commercial buyer at a good price, it means you need to have some form of organization. You come together, put your produce together, have a mechanism of paying back to the communities, but the person who off-takes that commodity takes large quantities and gives you a premium price for that. So one of the missing links in the agricultural system was the logistics hub or the supermarket hubs which bring these farmers together, or where they can accommodate this produce before they sell it. So Dino as a whole in the Office of the Prime Minister constructed one of the largest hubs in Laibi, which is yet to be commissioned, large scale at regional level.
How big is it?
So pretty big in Laibi, at a scale of a regional level with a number of warehouses in just one centralized locality. So what we are saying, before the farmers commute to a regional center, then they need small-scale centers within their localities where they aggregate their produce. So we are constructing what we are calling hubs. We are calling them supermarket hubs because it is from these facilities where I want them to access inputs, which were a challenge in the first place: fertilizers, irrigation, seed, and all that. So as a group, they pull together resources in a cooperative mode, go and acquire these inputs, distribute them on small scale amongst themselves, go out, conduct the farming throughout a season, and then collect this produce and bulk it. So in some way or the other, it is more or less a supermarket hub which is home to the farmer in that particular area. all the farmers in that particular area. So because it provides both inputs and outputs, we are promoting, just for purposes of promoting the mechanism through which we are entering the communities to educate them about agriculture. We are calling it a supermarket hub, where a supermarket hub, which is more or less a one-stop center for whatever that a farmer will need. Not only inputs and outputs, but at the facility is also a demonstration center for the farmers, for the different produce that they farm in their communities. So if you want to conduct a training session, for example, it is at this hub that these, farmers will congregate, and then, you take them through a session for the different commodities, the high productive commodities that we've just talked about in the different agricultural produce. We've not largely talked about livestock production. Largely, Northern Uganda is not a livestock producing area, but it is picking up as a major intervention in terms of commercialization, and people have picked interest in dairy production. There are a number of cooperatives that are now coming up in the region to undertake dairy production, and it is one of our commodities alongside the crop commodities that we talked about in the previous session. And people are picking up the idea, and they are interested in commercializing this to derive their livelihood from them.
So is that one of the, you've been talking about one of the interventions in the marketplaces?
Yes.
That NARO has introduced, Dino perhaps.
Yes.
Do you have any doing when it comes to how much protecting farmers and making sure that they get what they deserve when it comes to production, when it comes to them selling off their produce?
At marketing, after they've produced their products, we train the farmers on how to negotiate their own farming contracts. Because we are not in the region forever as a project. As NARO, we are in the region, but not in constant interface with the communities. So we build their capacity to negotiate prices. So we help them in terms of taking them through what it takes to profile who are the good market players. And they are available in the region. And farmers will tell you that, okay, we know the different produce buyers or produce traders in the region. Now what we are telling these farmers is, then how would you interface with them? Because for them to be cheated, it means that probably they are missing a step in terms of how they should interface with these produce buyers. So through the project, we also train them on how to negotiate for contracts. And we also help them or give them additional capacity on how to make market surveys. We don't want somebody to go in the region, the price of a commodity in a big town is say 1,000, and then this produce off-taker is maybe paying 300 or 400 in the region. Now that is because of poor access to market information. So within the cooperative or leadership, or farmer organization leadership, we take them through on how to undertake market surveys so that they come back and sensitize the communities, and then they weigh that, okay, this is what the market offers. Whom do we go for? And the person you go for, you must meet their requirements in terms of quality and quantity that you're going to produce. Now, the moment you have the quantities through boosting agricultural production, and you have a storage mechanism, because one of the other challenges is the farmers are in a dilemma. Even if the price is bad, but the farmer cannot store the produce for a long time. So the farmer sells it there and then. Yes. So this facility is very important in terms of ensuring that the farmer has where to store the produce as they finalize issues to do with market surveys. Now, after signing contracts with the produce buyers, they go out to the seasons to produce with an expected quantity, average quantity, and then when they meet that quantity and in terms of quality, then the produce buyer can now sell. Now we are saying even if the price is not so good, it must be the best, at least when you go for market prices, because this is business. So we want the farmers to have a choice of where to sell, and they sell in the right quantities, and then they get back these commodities. So we just mentioned one of the flagship interventions, the supermarket hub. That is in terms of the infrastructure. I began with the different commodities we are promoting as NARO that we've already researched on, and then how they should organize themselves to alleviate, selling without goodwill. You dispose of because you don't have infrastructure for, ensuring that your commodities are in good shape before you sell it, or you sell off hesitantly because you don't have enough space or infrastructure to protect these commodities. But before we go into even the seeding itself, we talked about access to seed, and I also mentioned that our major intervention is in terms of promoting access to seed through the local seed businesses. But there is one hiccup. This is a Ministry of Agriculture guided certification process. So if you're producing seed, even the seed companies themselves, you have to go through a certification process so that we are sure that what you're selling to the communities is actually the right seed. Yes. Now, you can imagine if Ministry of Agriculture is supervising that, I know through structures, but largely coordinated in Entebbe. So as Development Initiative for Northern Uganda, we thought it wise to build a regional seed testing lab. And to us, this is one of the flagship interventions that will help to alleviate any hiccups to do with access to seed, because these local seed businesses can then come to this to the seed testing laboratory, have their seed certified within the shortest period of time. It's a lengthy certification process that is undertaken between MAIF and the district local government through an inspection process. So with the laboratory in the region itself, you don't have to commit to other laboratories in Kampala or in Entebbe, where MAIF is situated. So at NARO's Ngeta Zonal Agricultural Research and Development Institute, we've established what we call a seed testing lab that works together with MAIF and the local government to undertake the certification process. So this can be completed in the region, and this is the first time we are introducing it at regional level.
Isn't that duplication? Because the Ministry of Agriculture is doing the same thing, and then NARO also wants to do the same thing.
Yes.
Yes.
So we are helping Ministry of Agriculture to be present within the local communities. So to undertake the certification that is done through an inspection with the district local government, the actual certificate has to be got from the Ministry of Agriculture headquarters, and it becomes a little bit lengthy, and for the the farming communities, the small scale farmers, to follow up. This is a very easy process with the seed companies because they are more or less formal. But for the local seed producer in the region, it becomes a little bit a lengthy process. And they want something that is probably within the communities to help them sort that out. And then this seed testing lab, at an appropriate moment, registers its certificate as a whole, or as in some form of bulk, with the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, so that there is no time lag between certification and access to the seed by the farming communities. So we feel it will go a long way in ensuring that farmers have timely access to seed that they actually
do you have the authority plant to do that?
Through authorization by the Minister of Agriculture.
Has it authorized you?
Not yet. We are in advanced stages of accrediting the lab with the Minister of Agriculture, such that it does exactly that. But in the first place, in the process of establishing it, being part of the ministry, we are an agency through the ministry, we are working with them through the process. So the final bend in terms of the actual accreditation, such that we undertake the certification on their behalf, but most importantly, register the certification with them after that, is what we are going to finalize on, so that the laboratory can become operational.
Well, good luck on that, because then that will make it easier for the farmers, like you said, to be certified for the seeds and production and all that they need to do. Now, infrastructure is one of the biggest issues, actually. And I know you talked about the supermarket hub where everything is going to be collected and put. But what about, you talked about roads as well. I want to know how that is going, and also access to the supermarket hub. How are people going to be able to move to that place for them to store, train, buy the seedlings or fertilizers or any of the things that they need to enhance their crops?
So one of the criteria we chose for siting these supermarket hubs is that it had to be accessible. We know that the road network in the region probably is not the best, but government is trying a lot to work on that. But as it works on that, one of our major criteria is that the host of these facilities or training facilities is that it had to be accessible in the first place. So we chose sites that are accessible for all the farmers in the area, not in the completely remote areas where access to even other support infrastructure such as access to electricity and access to water will be a problem, because you want the communities to access that. The beauty with that is it becomes a pilot for government, that if it has worked where there is access to power and water, it means that if all those facilities are pushed to the communities, then we can also, extend the facilities in terms of into the remote areas where actually the farmers are. So you're right, the infrastructure is not accommodative enough, but we began with areas where we can actually pilot it, make sure that it is a success story, and then the moment that becomes a success story to government, there is enough justification for government to extend these support services that can help us to extend that service to the communities.
Well, thank you so much, Albas. Thank you for the conversation and throwing more light on what NARO is doing. It sounds like it's very good news for all the farmers in different parts of the country. Now, this conversation was geared towards the first Northern Uganda Agriculture Show, which seeks to track and showcase efforts made in the region as well as disseminate transformative technologies. Now, this show will take place in Gulu district from the 28th of this month to the 3rd of July 2022, and there are actually different people who have decided to sponsor this event as well. Now, the anticipation is that that the event will have more than, or actually 2 million people who are expected to attend it, and the majority of these guests are smallholder farmers, youth, schools and development partners. Yes, the point is to have Northern Uganda get its glory back as the food basket of Uganda, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much for watching. Good Morning Extra, Mishara and Chomdisha. Have a lovely afternoon, and you can stay tuned for more programming coming your way. Spend your day so well. Bye-bye.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is